Oh yes, back to school. It is that time of year again, and it can bring a lot of emotions, and it can be hard for kids and parents to communicate about it. Here to help us with all of our mental health struggles that kids and parents may face is counselor Stefanie Peachey. Thank you so much for joining us. I feel like you and I are just about to have a session. I'm like, yes, okay, let's talk. How do parents recognize the signs of anxiety in kids?
Yeah, I think with back to school, anxiety can be incredibly normal, and we just have to tune into what's going on with our kids. So one of the biggest things that you can do, it's simple, is just talk to your kids. Talk to them ahead of time. How are you feeling? What are you imagining for the first day of school? What are those worries? I think sometimes parents don't want to bring up worries or anxiety because they feel like it'll trigger your child.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? But I think having that conversation and setting the tone for saying, I'm open to this discussion and I'm a safe person to talk to. Let me know what's going on and how you're feeling.
And quite often with kids, they may not want to talk about it, at least I find with my kids, they may not want to talk about it, but once they do, it feels so much better, like they've gotten it off their chest.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
I think that's a really important point, is sometimes that first conversation, you may not get a lot from them.
No.
So it's revisiting it and asking that a few times, but noticing some signs in them. Is there a hesitance to go to school? Are they very overwhelmed before they leave the home? Is there any, sleepless nights that are happening because their little minds are going?
Yeah.
And again, asking questions without trying to solve can be very important.
Yeah.
Because children want to be able to talk about what's going on for them without the, you must do this, you must do that.
They just want to be heard sometimes.
Absolutely.
Now, if you have a specific situation at school, so say you ended last school year on kind of a bad note, say you had some friends, or maybe not friends in your class, bullies per se, what do you say to your kid to kind of, if they're being bullied at school, or how to kind of prevent it going into the next school year?
Well, I think depending on the age of your child, it can be a different conversation, but really asking them, what can I do to help? Because sometimes as parents, we want to jump in, and I'm protective of my children.
Me too, like 6-foot angry mother comes storming into the playground.
Absolutely. And so I think asking, what can I do to help you? And brainstorm together. So can we talk to the teacher early on? Can we, put strategies into place about what you can say, what you can do, almost like a safety plan for kids. So if this comes up, what are you going to do, and how do you want to manage yourself? Because there's an identity piece there of, I have a little guy at home that might say, well, I'll get in there and I'll fight, and somebody else who will go, there you go, so relatable, right?
Yeah.
And he's watching, so he knows. But I think that, making a plan and figuring out, what do you have control of? I think that's a big piece when we talk about anxiety, is what is it that's in your control that you have choice around? Who are your safe people that you can go to for help? So your teacher, maybe a principal, who's ever on duty, a sibling in the yard, but ultimately making them feel confident in being able to make those good choices in the moment.
Okay, how can parents differentiate between normal emotions versus kind of extreme mental health struggles? Like if you've got, your son or daughter is saying to you, I'm really worried about going back to school. Is that just, well, every kid is kind of worried about that stuff, or is it something that you really need to look into further?
Yeah, and I think parents know their children best. So often we have parents come in and go, help me figure this out. And we work with parents to figure out, okay, what is sort of your normal behavior in your child? So I think the concern comes in when things become very pervasive, right? So maybe they're really not sleeping well. They're not eating well. They're coming home with full lunches. They're avoiding friends. These are all signs that you want to start to pay attention to. What is it that's happening? Sort of normal anxiety, if you will, is I'm nervous, but I can do it. I can settle in, I can push myself, and I can try these things. But if it's becoming very consistent, maybe some negative thinking, some negative self-talk, the I'm not good enough, the I don't ever want to go back, these are all things that you want to tune into a little bit more and figure out, do we need to get a bit of help?
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being here, Stefanie. Lots more coming up.